Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your hunt. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the dogs of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
I'll also say that you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that, killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott.
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass! I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an owl.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.
Howdy and hail, everybody. Welcome back to Saturday Night Drive-In. We took a week off because Jed and I had to affirm our love for each other. It had to happen.
It must.
It had to happen. Now, and to confirm that we weren't just living a fantasy. It's real. It's here for. How we doing, everybody? Welcome back. We are here tonight to take a break from everything. I know I need a break today. I made people big mad. I need a break, ready to have some fun with a classic. This is definitely a classic tonight, The Dirty Dozen. But before we go to that, Jed, it actually has been a week since I've seen you. How you doing?
I know, it's wild. I'm doing good. I'm exhausted right now because we did a Geeks and Gamers beach day, and I'm white, and so I'm very sunburnt right now. I'm very sunburnt right now, but it's always great to be here and relax a little bit. Talk about a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
I love this movie, so I'm very excited to jump into the conversation about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen this movie. It really had been. Even though it's on my shelf, it's not something that's in regular rotation.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this really is considered a classic World War II movie.
Mm-hmm.
And what can I say? Well, I'll let you start. This is your week, Jed. Of course, hail and howdy to the chat. Howdy, everybody. We hope you had a good weekend so far. We hope you didn't miss us too much from last weekend, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the show, whether you're watching now or on the Reupload replay. All right, Jed, so you chose this week. Why don't you set the stage for us? The Dirty Dozen, starring Lee Marvin and a hell of a lot of other famous people.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of people in this film, but it came out in 1967, I believe. So a little over 20 years after the war ended, and takes place during World War II, obviously, and features 12 convicted criminals on their way to either life in prison or execution for their crimes. And they're brought together by a almost disgraced major, because a lot of the military stuff I was picking up on this time that I hadn't previously.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's way too old to be a major. He was definitely demoted. He was definitely held back because of his attitude issues.
Oh yeah, career path gone. Career path gone.
He should be at least a colonel for his age. Most colonels I met were in their mid-30s. I mean, most majors were in their mid-30s, and he was definitely not in his mid-30s. But he brings these 12 convicted felons together for a suicide mission, and a small chance at redemption for them, a small chance that they'll be pardoned for their crimes if they succeed in this insane mission. and there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens along the way. And something I noticed this time, it's far more comedy oriented than I remember. There was a lot of stuff that I found very funny in this one.
Donald Sutherland is kind of the comedy angle in this, and you get surprising
pretending to be the general.
Yeah, that's a very interesting scene where he does the general thing, where suddenly the retard disappears, and he can actually pulls off the demeanor for the 10 seconds he needs to. But and this is Donald Sutherland, a very serious actor, and so that was having him be a comedy focus in this, and really says next to nothing the entire movie. It's all facial expressions. It's all emoting, Jed, emoting. Something that is lost on today's franchises, and everything that I'm currently watching and reviewing. And at the moment, as we're doing this, nobody can emote. Nobody can change their tone of voice.
And when they do it, it's so over the top. It's insulting to call it theatrical acting. It is just so blown out of proportion that you cringe when you see them trying to emote the few occasions they do.
So what we have in this movie, it really follows a pretty simple formula. We get Act 1 introductions. Act 2 is very long. Act 2 is massive. In fact, one of my few complaints is that I think they could have shaved 20 to 30 minutes out of this, I think.
It's possible.
Just in a little bit, not all at once, just a little bit here and there, just to shave down Act 2, because this is a 2.5-hour movie, essentially.
Which was very unusual back then.
Yeah. Now, of course, it's very, being the era, it's all practical effects. It's all hands-on. But and considering also, again, we'll talk about the cast as we go through this. But so Act 2 is massive, and Act 3 is relatively short by comparison. We reach the mission. And Jed, review us. What's the mission that they all get sent on, the suicide mission?
So the mission is, apparently there's this chateau in the Alps, I believe, which is basically a very fancy mansion/castle up in the mountains that a lot of German high command officers go for either relaxation meetings, whatever they need to do. But at any given time, there is a lot of high-ranking German officers in this one place, which makes them a good target for assassination. That's what this is. This is a mass assassination attempt. And it's impressive that they even tried to attempt it, as we see, because it's called a suicide mission for a reason. And I feel like this movie, even if it didn't actually inspire the Suicide Squad, I feel like it's very much what a Suicide Squad movie should be.
I had the same exact thought while I was watching. It's like, oh, a real situation Suicide Squad, where they're going to be sent. They're sent up dying. If they die, nobody's going to care, because this was a gamble of a mission anyway. Grant, if it's successful, great. You took out a bunch of high-ranking German officers right as the invasion begins. The invasion of Europe kicks into gear. If you don't, okay. I mean, the invasion, it doesn't actually affect the invasion.
No.
Patton's
they nearly scrapped it 3 times during the movie, so it's obviously not that big of a deal. Like, if you're going to do it, you got to do it perfectly. But...
And that was politics at play, that people that want to go. It was really, these were high-ranking officers in the Army and the Air Force playing politics. Or actually, no, it wasn't Air Force. It was airborne infantry, so it was still Army.
It was still Army. Air Force wasn't...
that
big.
It didn't really happen yet. Yeah, so
it was a part of the Army at the time.
Yeah, it was the airborne infantry, but it's a fascinating concept that this kind of strategy could be implemented and done, and using criminals. And of course, a lot of them bought into it. Some of them really didn't, even towards the end. And there was great setup, especially with Telly Savalas' Maggot. Set up the whole movie, and it's kind of and having Telly Savalas play this kind of unhinged character was a bit of a risky choice, because that's not really what he's known for, playing the unhinged lunatic. So he does a great job, and it's interesting how it's set up. I mean, that we always talk about setup and payoff. Maggot's setup, and we'll go down the list of the actual named Dirty Tusk,
the prominent of the 12.
Because they all get named, but essentially 7 of them are red shirts. To use
several red. There's some that I only remember from a scene or two. Like there's the one guy who gets told, my favorite line in the movie is feed the French, kill the German. The guy who gets told that, that's like the only scene I know him from, and then he probably dies.
And then he gets headshot and he gets head ganked right as he goes out there, which is wow. Okay, you're done.
And then Jimenez, we only know him from the rope climbing, and then he died in the parachute egg. So there's a lot of red shirts.
And even a couple. I'm like Posey. I didn't even see Posey die.
No, it's off screen. The dwarf gets the epic death.
Yeah,
scene.
I mean, Posey, last time we see a Posey, he fires off another flare, and then he's off camera, and we never see Posey die. So,
my assumption is he got shot at the same time as the dwarf, but yeah, you need to show Posey die because he's so lovable. Because I watched this film with Rachel, who she not seen in a long time as well, and she just kept saying stuff like, I want to give him a hug. Oh, Posey, I feel
Posey's
bad
one of the
him.
only guys I feel for. I mean, honestly, I really don't feel for a lot of these characters. I wasn't really rooting for many of them. I'm rooting, of course, for Lee Marvin because he's Lee freaking Marvin, and even though he's a disgraced major, he's still he's not a criminal, and he hasn't done horrible things. These are people who have done either by. I mean, Posey is one of the only ones I can connect to because Posey didn't mean to kill that guy. He just punched him.
He hit him once. There's no reason he would assume that would kill him. But a couple of the others I still relate to, like Charles Bronson's character. I can never say his name or remember
Charles
his name.
Bronson. Yeah, I'm not even going to try. He's Charles Bronson.
It's Charles Bronson. His character I really do enjoy and relate to because that was a hard choice he had to make. And just like the Major said, your mistake was getting caught, not necessarily doing it. Because for those of you who don't know, Charles Bronson's character was on... been sentenced to death, I believe, for murder. And what he done is he was in a crossfire. They were dying. His men were dying all around him. And the man holding all the medical supplies, the corpsman, or I don't know what you'd call it in the army. Whoever's holding the medical supplies flips out and starts running away. And so he shoots the guy so that they don't lose out on their medical supplies because
people were hurt. They were hurt. They were dying.
Injured people all around him. Yeah. By shooting that one guy, he probably saved a lot of lives. So I can relate to that because, that sucks. Like I don't know if I would make the same decision, but I can see the reasoning behind it, and he might have done the right thing. And Pinkley, kind of the same thing. Like several of them, I could see something.
Jefferson, played by Jim Brown. Jefferson, he was defending himself from racists trying to kill him, but
there's a lot. Oh, and Jefferson's. Another one of my favorite parts in the movie is Charles Bronson's character. His subtle relationship with Jefferson is great. Like, they don't really say a whole lot of words to each other, but they're always, like, deferring to each other, nodding at each other. Like, they're always communicating with each other, and they clearly care about each other. Charles Bronson doesn't seem to care about anybody else. But
it was the understanding of, I know I can count on you. Because, again, just like me, I think, to your point, just like Charles Bronson's character, Jefferson was another one in there who, kind of did the right thing by not letting himself be killed or castrated, as he said. And so he's not evil, as opposed to Maggot, who is evil. Maggot is evil. He is not, and he's insane. Or Franco is a piece of shit. Franco is a piece of shit.
I feel like he'd make a great mobster. I don't know why.
Well, he was a petty criminal. He was a petty mobster who had big grand ideas. And my favorite, I love it. Honestly, I love it. We got out of here. We did it, you bastards. Yeah, Franco, you just killed yourself by saying that.
Yep.
That you're gonna get killed. And I didn't feel bad that Franco got killed because Franco was an asshole. Yeah, I feel bad Jefferson got killed. I feel bad that Donald Sutherland's character got killed because he was just a moron, and he wasn't.
And he died really soon.
Yeah, he was the second death. First death was dude who blew himself up taking out the radio antenna because his foot got caught. And now, honestly, you tell me you really can't pull your foot out of there? Come on.
Yeah, there are a few moments that strain credulity like that one, and that's where a lot of my criticism is going to come
Especially at that point, all hell's gone to lose because, and we'll get into details of the mission because that's the meat of the movie right there. It's the buildup, and it's a good buildup, and it pays off as a great scene. But at that point, everything's gone to hell. Why not shoot around your leg to relieve
once
whatever's
the siren
pinning
goes
you?
off, everything's open. You don't have to be quiet anymore.
Yeah,
nothing's off the table. So
or use the butt of the gun. Go, you break yourself free. Don't be going. Okay, I'm gonna kill myself. Throw the grenade. But yeah, there are guys you can feel for, but as a whole, outside of Charles Bronson, Jefferson, and Posey, and not counting the major and the sergeant, who
and Pinkley.
Pinkley was Donald Sutherland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
Outside those guys, I don't really care for any of them. And the red shirts, we don't know who they are. The two red shirts who die on the boat.
Oh, those guys piss me off every time. It's like, no, you're out in the open. There's no cover. It's better to go on foot than it is to take that damn boat.
You could have crawled down and made it out of there. Why are you on the boat? Plain as day.
Standing straight up.
Yeah.
So that death, their deaths are what pissed me off the most. That and the other thing that bothered me a lot was during that assault, the enemy soldiers just were really weird to me. Like they'd all like onesie twosie like slowly creep out, shoot, and die immediately. Creep up, shoot, die immediately. I mean, it was the same thing over and over again, and not all of them made sense. Like, why you're not in a place that like, what have you been doing this whole time?
Here was I was questioning the German, we won't say the other word, the German soldiers who were kind of like you just said, coming out of the woodworks at the end from out of nowhere. I mean, granted, some of them were from the reinforcements that Posey and the dwarf were trying to keep from getting in there.
Those ones made sense.
Yeah, but some of them came at that point. Once the whole thing explodes, honestly, I would have been like, "F this. This is I'm out of here. I'm not going to chase these guys down. It's already over."
Well, and I've always wondered how those massive amounts of reinforcements got there that quickly. Like, there's tanks,
I would have to know the terrain. I would have to know the terrain. I'd have to know the logistics of what's going on there. I mean, I guess again, I don't remember exactly, like you said, where this mansion was. Where the chateau was.
The big thing about it is it was so high up in the mountains that it was hard to get to. That was their big defense. That's why there wasn't. Yeah, that's why they had to parachute in. Like it's a mountainous, the natural defenses are what they relied upon.
And because this is literally the night before D-Day, there's no airfields. There's no bombing missions yet. I mean, if it had been after D-Day, yeah, easy peasy, do a strafing run. But they don't control airfields yet. So
there's just some weird stuff like that. Like there would have to be a massive army base right next to the chateau to have that many reinforcements there that quickly. And the radio signal never got a chance to go out. Like Charles Bronson got the radio man before anything.
While he was yelling and didn't get far, and then they blew up the antenna. Either way, but again, we'll talk about the battle when we get there. But overall, as you said, I'm not really connected to a lot of the characters outside of 4, really, and I could even take one away because Pinkley's just okay. We don't like to see retards die. It's sad, but overall, I want Lee Marvin to be successful because he's a guy who's no nonsense. He doesn't want to play politics. He's there. And you can tell he wants to, even though he has no love for these guys, he finds, I guess, some level of uncle-y love. He's an uncle to them. I wouldn't say father figure, but he's like the hard uncle who, okay, you guys have earned this. I don't want you all to die, because you see that when he notices as the deaths pile up in the mission, that there's a moment of okay, moving on. There is regret that some of them die, but I want him to survive, and of course, we want the mission to be a success because hey, we're killing 1940s Germans, and that's a good thing. But all right, so Act 1, we get all the introductions. Even though we dislike him, Franco is one of the central of the dozen.
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of once we're out of the introduction phase and we're into the training phase, the getting ready phase, a lot of the incidents are kind of funneled through him. That's a fair way to put it. And again, it didn't win me over to him. But
it's not meant to. I don't think you're supposed to like Franco at all. I definitely don't think that was the intention because he was always the problem. I mean, you could have moments with him, like I really love the moment when he stands up to the colonel and says, "No, sir, I will not be demonstrating the proper way to shave, sir." It's like he's standing up.
That's different. I think that's different. That's at the moment where I'm not necessarily rooting for him. I'm rooting for the team as a whole. Where I'm thinking,
the camaraderie that's there.
Let's not knuckle under to this asshole colonel who just got made a fool of and now is looking to pick a fight because he doesn't like that he got showed up by their play. Which again makes that whole part where they're going to get paratrooper training for the mission. You would think that Ernest Borgnine's character, the general, would have General Warden. Thanks, Legatus. That General Warden would have at least said, "Yeah, this shit's top secret, but these guys are coming through. Don't bother them." That doesn't make sense to me that they'd had to go through that whole thing, and it feels
he does know though, because that's why he was there when at the very beginning when the major was getting debriefed, is because he was being told about this, but he flagrantly disobeyed those orders, and that was a big thing. But because he was above the major, Lee Marvin couldn't say anything about it.
Yeah.
Reisman couldn't. So the colonel was just like, I hate this. I hate Reisman and his stuff. His people are being highly suspicious. So no, he knew he wasn't supposed to do anything, but he knew he could get away with it. Like
I think it was after the fact, though. What I'm talking about is the initial, because remember they tricked him to that a general
I know
was coming.
He already knew he already knew that Reisman was working on top secret training, because that's why he was there at the beginning, is what I'm saying. When Reisman got his initial orders and told about the dozen for the first time.
Oh no, that colonel wasn't there. The colonel for the airborne infantry, was he there?
Yeah, he was in the lobby outside. He wasn't in the actual meeting, but he was in the lobby outside, and he asked the general, it's like, General, I have one final question. The colonel out in the lobby, is he involved in this plan in any way? As a matter of fact, he is. He will be conducting the airborne training for your men. Actually, he said, is that going to be a problem? It's like, if he is, I'd be very unhappy. He's talking about the
I remember that line. I guess I blinked out.
Because he has a long running rivalry with that colonel, and so that's why the colonel did everything he did.
Okay, I guess I missed that. I mean, I remember the line. I'd be very unhappy about that, but I guess I missed that part.
It was about the colonel who was in the lobby right before.
I totally missed that.
And he does mention the colonel is there to be briefed at least partially on what's going on, to the extent that they decide to trust him. So the only reason the colonel does any of the shit in this movie is because he's trying to destroy Reisman. Then he shouldn't question the training. He shouldn't do anything that he did. He shouldn't make a fanfare for an undercover general. Every single decision the colonel makes is very, very wrong from a military's perspective. And from just a general intelligence perspective, but he just really hated Reisman that much, it looks like.
Yeah, and well, I guess that whole thing is therefore to set up the pinnacle of Act 2, where during the war games.
The war games. Oh, I love the war games.
The war games is great. I mean, one of my only real problems with the movie is the first 2/3 of Act 2, the training, the this and that. I feel like it drags on too long. That's my biggest thing. They could have cut it down a little bit, just a couple minutes here and there, just to shave off 30 minutes.
A few things could have been, especially with the training. I love the Posey knife scene. That one's important, but we don't need quite as many, perhaps, psychologist scenes. We don't. I do agree. There is some padding that doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, I mean, everything concerning Maggot is important because Maggot,
especially the prostitutes.
Yeah,
the first time through this movie, you'd probably be like, I mean, it makes sense that they're getting rewarded. It's good for camaraderie, but you don't realize how important those prostitutes are.
Because that's what sets Maggot off. That's why Maggot is yelling. He yells from the tower, all you sinners are going to have your day coming. And he fucks up the mission.
Because how many of them die because Reisman got him prostitutes? They never talk about it, but how many of them died because he did that?
Yeah, Maggot was sort of keeping it together until then, and that's what sets him off, because when he kills that chick in the mansion, that sets him off completely, and he's triggered at that point. Okay, now, and of course, we already know he hates Jefferson because he dropped the hard R.
He did.
the briefing.
But everything about Maggot just makes so much sense from hearing that, like, he was always God's warrior. He was always punishing the wicked and hunting out, sullied women. That was a big thing with him, is sexual impurity among women. That was one of his big things, is why he was in prison. Like, he was a very bad person.
Very bad man. Now,
And
I question
all
why
just tracks.
Why put him on this mission? Then he is the loosest cannon of the bunch. I question that. I mean, couldn't there have been one more just sort of really bad guy, not a psychotic? Here's the thing. After the captain psychologist comes in and just does that stuff, after that scene, that should have been the thing that said, okay, we can't have Maggot here. He's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, he's like, why do you hate Major Reisman so much? Because he's helping these evil, evil men. And like, that's really creepy. The way that I've always explained it, why Maggot is there, which is 100% a headcanon, may not be a thing, maybe a stretch, whatever, is it just felt like they chose random people because they were all already at that same prison. They just went to one prison and there didn't seem to be a whole lot of other people in the cells.
Or some of them are literally days away from the noose.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jefferson was 6 days away from the noose
Mm-hmm.
when Reisman goes and talks to him. So some of them may have just been because, okay, these guys are right at the end, and we're gonna pick these guys because they'll say yes.
The closest to sentencing.
Yeah. So that guess that if you take that into account, which I wouldn't even say is headcanon, that makes sense. That maybe that's why. But still, after that psych evaluation, I would have.
The thing was, what Reisman was told repeatedly is one of them fails, they're all going back in the mission scratch.
I guess you're right. You're right.
So,
you're right.
I mean, he just had to work with what he had.
I take it back.
As much as he wanted to get rid of Maggot, I'm sure the general, and especially the one younger colonel, I think he was a colonel who was a real
the one that really had a bug up his ass. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure they would have scrapped it. I mean, they tried to scrap it after what happened at the airborne. So if you got rid of one of them, they probably would have scrapped it.
You're right. You are absolutely right. I take that back. You're absolutely right. That's why he couldn't get. So it was the best of a bad situation with Maggot. But I just got to talk about the ladies who were brought in. 3 of them looked okay. Some of those go.
I mean, they are French whores that he just drove around looking for. I want that scene. We could cut out a lot of this movie. We need that scene of the military police guy just driving around in his massive truck and be like, "Hey, girl, want to drive out to me in the middle of nowhere and have some fun with 12 dirty, stinking, hairy men
who haven't bathed in weeks?"
I need that. I need that scene.
But man, some of those girls, ooh boy. But again, 12 men, 9 women. Now
There's
I don't know.
Devil's three ways going on.
Somebody got Eiffel Towered. But it was, that is one of the you wouldn't think, like you said, that's one of the most important scenes in the movie, because it's a catalyst for so many things. It's a catalyst for the war game scene, and it's a catalyst for Maggot just ruining everything, nearly ruining everything, or starting the party before they were all in place. Because they went to a backup plan with how they got rid of him. Anyway, so
the thing with Maggot is this is something that I noticed on this watch through is Major Reisman may never have known that Maggot betrayed them. Because the only people who knew were Jefferson, who died before he had a chance to tell,
and the red shirts who were up there.
The 2 red shirts who died very quickly. No one else knew that Maggot had betrayed them and started this whole problem. So, I mean, they might have guessed Maggot might have been the problem, but they'd never know. And he would never have known that it was the prostitutes that had been the catalyst. Like, there's no way they could have known. It's not like Jefferson sat down with Charles Bronson and was like, "Hey, as we're putting these grenades down this hole, Maggot, he went a little crazy, by the way."
Yeah.
There's no time for that.
And I want to get to that. So let's go over the best part of Act 2, which is the war game scene, which is, again, we feel now it's the full, what little connection we can have with these bad men. The war game scene is the kind of is that classic teamwork scenario where we've come together, they're getting it done, and let's enjoy it. And it is enjoyable.
And clear leadership is some good strategy. Like, you're seeing it all come together, and like, this might actually work.
And
This
that's the
isn't
thing.
a disaster.
And it's really one of my favorite parts of it is where Ernest Borgnine is just sitting there with thinking, "Wow, okay, I know exactly what's going on here,"
He's
and I'm
just
getting
grinning.
I'm just getting a kick. That Ernest Borgnine grin, that famous Ernest Borgnine smile, just like, yeah, all right, yeah, okay, I like this, and I love it how he leaves. Basically, the words not said. Okay, Colonel, goodbye. You're fucked. You're done. You are the Trojan horse has already happened. They're inside. You're not gonna you're gonna lose.
Well, and I think he wanted to stay, I'm sure, but it was important for his reputation not to be there when something like that happened. Like, even if it's a war game, that would reflect on him because he's the highest ranking officer present.
Yeah, but he knew thing is he knew exactly what was going on. So
100%.
I think also because he didn't want to accidentally, I think, tip the scales.
Yeah, he didn't want to give it away too soon. But the other major that worked for the general, he wants to be there so bad. He runs a few hundred yards.
Threw him off the freaking medical truck. I think again that's that little moment of, hey, we're just gonna be a little assholeish here. We're just gonna ditch him. But he got there, and even when he gets there, even though he's limping all the way, he's still laughing his ass off when they pull it off. And it's really cool. That's kind of stuff I love watching. I love seeing that kind of scene where a strategy is laid down. We're going to do infiltration. We're going to do subterfuge, and then watching the tactics play out. The armband switching.
And they thought through everything, like even having orders, and knowing the names of the right captains. Like they did their research, and it doesn't seem like when you first meet these guys, they're like, oh, they're just degenerates. They're just they don't care. They're not going to put any effort into anything. No, when they put their minds to something, they're quite efficient.
Oh yeah. And also it's again because of leadership, because Charles Bronson he's basically guy in charge of that group because he was an officer.
He's the de facto leader. And as much as I love the Pinkley general scene, I would have picked Charles Bronson to play the general, be the fake general. That just makes so much more sense. Just instead of picking the retarded guy or a random person, Charles Bronson can pull it off. He can pull off the general vibe.
Well, actually, no, he couldn't, because oh no! This is before they get seen.
That was before.
Oh no! He couldn't. No, why he couldn't? Because he got attacked in the bathroom.
That's after this.
It is after this.
Because
he's taking the pit. You're right.
Because those guys were only ordered to go there because the colonel was suspicious of Pinkley as the general.
You're right. And that scene is, from a technical standpoint, it shows one of those things that sometimes happen in movies where clearly somebody's voice had been dubbed over. And
in the fight scene in the bathroom,
the dude leaning over, and you see it a couple times earlier in the movie. There's a dub moment. It's like, I see it. Again, 1967. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
But that's also one of those scenes where you understand there's that subtle camaraderie between Charles Bronson and Jefferson. So the war game scene, it's that feel good moment of, okay, the team has come together and we're going to do this, and no one's questioning anymore. And that, I think that's one of the key things come out of that. The following celebratory turkey dinner the night before, one night later, nobody's questioning shit anymore. No. Everybody's on the same page. They're not trying to, because I think what happened is during that whole situation, they were still leery of Reisman because they thought that he sent those two airborne infantry goons after them. But then when Colonel Buttface comes in there and decides to make trouble, that's when they all realize, oh shit, he didn't send them. He wasn't trying to screw us over. All right. The whole incident surrounding, leading up to the war game scenario, the infiltration, the bet, that's what solidifies everything. Because it happened unintentionally, I think, because remember, Reisman was looking for that one thing to give them a unified enemy, not just him, but another enemy. And Colonel Goonface literally gave them an enemy we can all rally to hate. And that's what pulled the team together.
It was very necessary. Yeah. You need to have an enemy that isn't your commanding officer.
Yeah, so that's why I say I think Act 2 could have they could have shortened it up, given us a few key moments that why everybody dislikes Reisman for so long, because he's being a hard ass, because he's trying to whip these guys into shape. so that they can pull this suicide mission off. But they could have done with a lot less of it and gotten right to the point of we need to get these guys in a real unit. They got to have that that shared camaraderie aspect, the brotherhood that World War II bred for so many men in the trenches together, or in the thick of it. And then cut right to, here's a unified enemy. Here's that thing we needed to get them all working with each other. And then we got it. And then we're off to the mission. And I guess let's talk about the mission now. The Act 3, 40 minutes of do or die. And they even have their little rhyme, which I won't even try to replicate.
Oh, it's a good rhyme, though. It definitely
it's good.
Remember. I love it.
I'd bobble it if I tried it. I would boomer it so bad. But that's representative of that classic strategy where this is World War II. You don't have earbuds connected to command room, to oversight, to people overwatch, one shit. You have to, and not everybody's going to be in communication. There's no choker communications where you can whisper and someone's still going to hear you. None of that exists. You have to do stuff that people can remember very easily and have it. I mean, you can joke about it because it's a silly movie, but I think of this, I look at this and I think of Hudson Hawk, where Bruce Willis and Danny Aiello are using old songs with set time limits to go through their jobs. And that's what this reminds me of. The rhyme reminds me of that. It's a rhyme that keeps them on target. Yep. And that's an important thing. That's what they had to do back then. They had to use stuff like that, and they use the rhyme, and everybody gets in place, and everybody knows their role, except poor dude who gets hung up in the tree. There's death right away.
They do recover from that very quick.
So-and-so has a date, which means dude who goes and gets his foot caught up on the roof had to take over that, and he still fucked it up. All right, so let's talk about the mission. You're really full on in on this scene, aren't you?
Oh yeah, I adored this movie, and I get what you're saying just in general with the hard to relate characters, but I relate to a lot of them. I really connect. I love a lot of them. But the sequence, I do have problems with it. Just like I mentioned, the enemy soldiers acting very strangely and just coming out of the blue. There's some weird stuff in the reinforcements. There's a lot of problems with it, but there's a lot of great character work, a lot of great subtle stuff. And we really get to see Charles Bronson and Lee Marvin on together alone. We don't see that the rest of the movie, and they're two incredible actors just sharing the screen.
And it's a fascinating scene when you realize, because they did some fascinating things in there. When you're alone with the German officers before they get in there, they give you the subtitles. But then when you're Lee Marvin and Charles Bronson, no subtitles.
Well, because Lee Marvin doesn't know.
Because you're in their position right now, and you're supposed to share Lee Marvin's confusion or controlled confusion of, I have no idea what these assholes are saying, but I have to nod. I have to use his joke. I have to grunt and look mean in order to get through this. And that's a great subtle little work there.
Even Charles Bronson didn't know German that well.
Yeah.
Most of the things we saw him say, you can kind of infer what he was meaning. But I think, and just like he said, the two guys walking down the stairs, he had no idea what they were saying. He was nearly as confused as Lee Marvin was through a lot of it. So, I really like how they just put
it's a fantastic film trick to really put you on the level of two of your protagonists, where you are sharing the same confusion they are, wondering, unless you're somebody who could speak German or any other language. I mean, I know coming from a very lingual family, my family can speak languages pretty well, but I can't. My family called it having the grape. I always only have half the grape. I could, if I was in a language long enough, I could hear it and I could translate in my head instantly, but reading and writing, shit. So coming from a family who's very good linguists, who oftentimes when you watch movies with them, when a language comes up, I can understand what they're saying. And I'm sort of going, I can understand the Russian. I can understand the Italian. I can understand the Spanish, the German. I can understand all this stuff. Okay. All right. I mean, let's be honest. Even after 20 plus years of watching anime with subtitles, I only know a handful of Japanese words. I don't know Japanese. I'm not paying attention. Point is, though, that's a great film trick to get you connected to those characters in that moment and understand the frustration and the quick thinking when they have to sign in on the registry with all those highly calligraphy signatures there. And you realize that's one thing they didn't prepare for, some rando officer signature. And then Charles Bronson just goes,
which would probably be cross-referenced.
Just a whoopsie. Oh, I'm sorry. We're gonna go F off here. You clean that up. Bye.
Which did cause it didn't actually cause an issue, but that one officer,
dude,
the lieutenant, was suspicious.
He was eyeballing them the rest of the time. He was eyeballing them the whole time. But
and he was there when my favorite line in the movie was said, "Feed the French, kill the Germans." He was one of the Germans.
Yep. But what we got there, so the whole thing begins. They get in there. You always lose one guy in. Everybody's doing this. My question is, why was the sergeant there? I wonder that.
He must have volunteered because this was a suicide mission.
Yeah.
The major was voluntold, but I'm sure the sergeant volunteered on his own. But it does make sense that
somebody to watch them.
Yeah, military police. They're his responsibility. Like as much as the major is in charge of their training, it would still be the military police personnel who would be responsible for the captivity of the inmates.
Yeah.
So if they escaped, if what's his bucket had managed to escape, it would just be what is it, Franco?
So,
if Franco had escaped, it would be just as much on his head as the major's.
Good point. Good point.
So I imagine he's more there for babysitting, and at that point,
Sergeant Loyal guy.
Sergeant Loyal guy. At that point, he had developed quite a bit of camaraderie with them as well. Like in the scene where the colonel comes and raids their camp, like
he does his best.
He does his best, and like when Posey hands him the gun, there's some respect between Posey and him. They smile at each other, and he's enjoying seeing these men that he helped train perform so well.
It's also a good example of a non-asshole guy. I mean, just because he has authority. How many times in movies where you have prisoners and their guards are the guards portrayed as just pure sons of bitches to try and create your affinity for maybe the prisoner who isn't such a bad guy. So it was. I appreciate in the movie that that Sergeant Loyal guy is not a jerk.
No, and I think he's downright likable.
The
scene where the hard R was dropped, he just casually starts talking about baseball, and I always smile in that scene. He's like, "Yeah, my sister could throw better than most of them," and his men are like,
"Yeah, we're just gonna let this. We're gonna let them sort that out in there, okay? Let Jefferson kick Maggot's ass. let it happen. It's okay.
Deservedly so." But yeah, he has a lot of great moments like that. A lot of them are very subtle, and I think he's an important addition to the movie and needed to be there at the end for narrative reasons as much as
I was just questioning why, and you gave me a good answer. Yeah. But it's kind of I kind of feel though it's his fault that Pinkley gets shot because he wasn't watching Pinkley's back.
100%. It was his fault, and he should feel bad about that because he's supposed to be covering Pinkley. That's his actual job at that moment, is to be covering Pinkley's back.
Because that one German that took after the cigarette lighting that walks around the corner, he should have that was what we call in the gaming terms. That's a pather. He's walking his path, and you got to watch that pather to make sure he's not going to come back and draw aggro. And what do? He drew the aggro, and he killed poor Pinkley. And Donald Sutherland gets props for dead man eyes lying on the ground. At one point, we get a shot of him just like this, and he just lying there with the dead look on his face. It's like, good job, Donald Sutherland. Way to commit.
and this movie, a big thing about it that I like is beyond the comedy, the relatable characters. It really shows you how rough war can be in a lot of situations, like from a moral perspective. Like there's a lot of debate on whether or not this mission was a moral mission or even violated the Geneva. Exactly.
Yeah.
This violated the Geneva Convention. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Yeah. These actual war crimes that they commit.
The Germans were working with the Geneva Convention.
Oh, no, I know that. I just mean by modern standards. But it's a very interesting thing. Like, they're not portrayed as bad people in the movie, from that perspective, at least. Like, they're doing the right thing from that perspective. But it is an interesting discussion. Just like Charles Bronson, did he morally do the right thing? That same argument can be applied across the whole movie.
Legitimate questions are asked, yeah.
And a good moment of that is after the Feed the French, Kill the Germans. That guy is really struggling.
He didn't want to do it. Now
Sergeant Loyal guy had to come and say, "You know what you got to do, so do it."
I wouldn't have had a problem.
He had to be a hard man. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Sergeant Loyal guy, like that was a hard moment. But
because I can understand they're unarmed. It's not in the middle of battle, but enemy soldiers. I would like to think I would have pulled the trigger and been like, "Yep, this is war. Moving on." Maybe I'm cold hearted. Maybe I'm cold blooded. I don't know.
I do think it's interesting that he struggled with
but
it.
it's a good moral quandary. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I love movies that can do that. It's like, yeah, we're not actually going to spend time from the movie to explore these issues, but we're going to present them and let the audience decide. Like, I would not blame any audience member from going out of this movie thinking there were no heroes in it. Like, they made the wrong moral decisions. I mean, yes, they were bad guys from the beginning. They were inmates, but even the major.
So the whole mission is they originally were supposed to make it as they called it, a turkey shoot, have a bunch of officers running out of the building and mow them down, or was it running around? But because Maggot screws everything up, and let's talk about that scene, because that scene is one of those scenes that I never forget. I've forgotten parts of this movie because I've only seen this movie probably 3 times in my life. I never forget that scene, and I never forget having Joe Brown do the run. Jim Brown. It's like Jim Brown's. Let's get the football player to do a run. But I never forget Jefferson's last run. But the Maggot scene where he loses his mind completely, goes in there, decides to take a load off on the bed. Oh, I'm gonna take it easy, and then the lady comes in, and of course that's his ultimate trigger, a woman.
And she's there to find a man to fuck. Like
she was there for some snoo. Yeah.
And that's what really set him off.
And after he gets her to scream, she's into it. She's into it. And then she leans forward, and he doesn't even move the dagger. He lets her lean into the dagger. Did you notice that? He just holds it there, and he lets her lean into it. And that's when he completely loses it. He opens fire on his own teammates,
on the red
and they're stuck. And then while he's doing that, they're stuck because then suddenly, boom, the party starts. And instead of triggering the officers to go someplace into a crossfire, no, they think it's an air raid because one of the officers mentions the invasion. So they knew the invasion was coming. Now they thought it was coming farther north because at that point in actual historical lore, the Germans were convinced Patton was going to lead it because Patton, who was in trouble at the time, was being made to have a false army built around him for an invasion in the German part. They had no idea it was coming from Normandy. They believed the ruse that because the Germans were scared to death of Patton, rightly so. Patton, I love Patton. So they knew an invasion was coming, and that one officer says, "Oh, the invasion! Oh, you're a little excited," because they thought the scream was a scream, not a "Oh my God, you're gonna kill me" scream.
Well, so speaking of that real fast, the real history, just real fast, I think it would be really cool to find out how in the world Reisman, Charles Bronson, and Sergeant Loyal guy got to Normandy. That was the plan: was go to Normandy. Hopefully, the invasion.
They were all wounded. All 3 of them were wounded. So I guess, and that was a slow ass moving truck. Yeah, because Bronson gets shot in the leg from the dude who was faking dead on the stairs,
and the
Reisman takes a shot, took one in the leg too, or one in the hip. I think one in the ass, maybe ass or hip. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that, and that's what had the red shirt die come and get shot.
And then and Reisman took one in the shoulder.
How did they get all the way back? Like that's a cool story in and of itself.
Yeah,
but
that's an extra 20 minutes though. I don't want to watch at this point.
It's true. Like I'm glad they cut it, but it would be cool for like maybe a comic book or something. Or I don't know. Like it seems impressive.
Yeah. So, but all right. So Maggot sets everything off. Jefferson and 2 or 3 red shirts are caught in the back because he's pinning them. He's pinning his own men down because again, here's the payoff. You sinners are going to get it. And he's on his mission from God, and he doesn't get. The sinners have to come before the Germans. Again, so it's brilliant pay up and set off, and of course, again, I think it's good. I think it's pay off, set up and pay off. Did I say pay up and set off? I said pay up and set off, didn't I? Yeah. Set up and pay off that Jefferson gets to kill him.
Oh yeah, 100%. He had the most justification to do it,
and he didn't even hesitate.
Oh no, and rightfully so. But
Yeah.
I think Maggot was intending to betray them the whole time, and he knew he could never take them on all by himself, so he needed to have the Germans kill them. That was the only way that he could give them the comeuppance. Well, God's justice could only be
he
delivered
thought he
by
was
the
protected by
Germans.
God. He thought he was protected by God. He thought he was going to get out of it probably because he's God's soldier.
So I imagine he intended to do it, but yeah, that woman just set him off. So I imagine he intended to, but yeah, he still went additionally crazy in the moment. I'm sure.
It's the wild card of an insane person. But the whole mission is now fucked because the officers then say we're going to go to the bomb shelter, and I don't think they knew that was an option. And but then Reisman and Charles Bronson call an audible, and they realize, wait a minute, we can now trap them all in one place. So then they trap them all in there, and then it's plan B. There has to be air vents. The bastard's got to breathe. And then, now here's one of my criticisms of that. It's all cool. You know, we have all the action going on, pinning down the reinforcements. Once they got those grates up, putting the grenades down the chute, good. That's good. Have multiple points of entry. They poured way too much gasoline down those vents. I mean, one what would you call that container? One container of gasoline per vent would have been enough.
Yeah,
would have been enough, and that's why I feel like was done to add time and tension to the scene so that the group could get separated a little bit, and Jefferson's then cut off and has to do the run.
Yeah. I'm sure that could be a reason, but with grenades, they're not necessarily all that fiery. So they're playing. They needed to light the armory.
I just said it was too much gasoline.
No,
they poured
I know,
like
but
three or four of them down the whole thing.
They need to get all that explosion through the door to the armory. They need to get it to the armory, and so
I guess so.
Having more gasoline would make it more fiery, make it go farther. And I can see, at least for the first one, the one closest to the entrance to get towards the munitions, which blow up the chateau in the end. I can see that as warranted, but for the others, I can see it being a bit too much, especially like the one in the back where Jefferson was working. And Charles Bronson. Charles Bronson was the one who went way overboard with the gasoline. It's by far the most.
So I just feel like that was part for that scene was just drawing it out so that the tension would build and they're separated, and then Jefferson's last run, Jim Brown doing a football run, doing a 20-yard dash, almost making it, then getting shot by a dude around the corner. And that makes you feel bad because he did. It was awesome. He's running, dropping the grenades as he goes. I'm getting in there, and then come on, Jefferson, come on, and then gets killed. It's like, shit, damn it. I do feel bad. Jefferson dies, but then they managed, despite all the fuck ups and screw ups, and boat dudes on the boat, two red shirts on the boat getting killed, and nobody really taking into account what's going to of making sure they had locked down all the pathers, all the rando Germans. They pulled it off, and it overall it's a great scene. There's attention, there's this and that, and I think it's fair that only 3 survive.
Oh yeah, after all that, I'm impressed that 3 survived.
Lee Marvin had to survive because he's the central star of this, and
narratively speaking, yeah.
And it's Charles Bronson. I mean, even at that point in his career, realize that Charles Bronson generally survives these things because he just does. So I'm okay with the 3 of them surviving. I'm okay with, and it's a great final moment there in the hospital room where asshole Colonel, who tried to shut it down on time, is basically turns into a bootlicker now that they survived. It's like, yeah, thanks a lot, asshole. Yeah, great. Yeah, you can go now. But in the end, the movie pulls off what it was supposed to.
Absolutely.
You get the ragtag team aspect of not so good people. A few of them, at least from where I'm sitting, I can latch onto a couple of them. So I'm essentially rooting for at least 3 or 4 of them. And we get some good action in the end. Believable action too. Because it's believable that these guys all die. We're talking regular dudes. There are no superpowers. There's no super abilities. There's no backup. People, it's the it's stakes. stakes matter, and the movie set up the stakes, and they had the stakes be the deathly stakes that they were supposed to be. And it was a suicide mission, and many of them are deaded. So I'm okay with it, and it's a good time. It's a good time. Great cast. Everybody, the acting is superb. That's one thing you could say. The acting is superb. These are action heroes of the era of World War II movies and other stuff that know their role or are very good at what they do. And a lot of them are, in this case, legendary actors at this point too, from that era. Lee Marvin, Charles Bronson, Donald Sutherland, who is still alive. These are all legendary actors, and of course, and then you have legendary icons of the time. Jim Brown, legendary football player who went on to have an interesting acting career. I'm gonna get you, sucker.
What's that from?
He's in the movie I'm gonna get you, sucker. With yeah, that's from the mind of Keenan Ivory Wayans. Okay. That's an interesting movie. That's the one. I think we showed you the clip where the dude, the pimp, walks around with the fish in his shoes, in his platform shoes. Have I showed you that?
I don't think so.
I don't know if you were on that stream when we were using that clip to make fun of something.
I don't think so.
Oh, I'm gonna get you, sucky. That's Keenan Ivory Wayans. Jim Brown's in that, along with Chef from South Park. Shit, what was his name? Shit. Crap. Mr. The Smooth Singer. He always put on his music to get the ladies in the mood. Oh God, what the hell's his name? Shit, I'm blanking. Put on some. Well, they were in that movie. They were the two elderly, older black heroes of the movie that helped shit out. Anyway, so Jim Brown, legendary sports icon, in that too at the time. It was a movie that had all the right pieces and was entertaining. So, all right, so there we go. And not much of a soundtrack to talk of. It's there.
I love the soundtrack,
but
especially during the opening credits and the end credits. Oh God, I love that orchestra.
I'll be honest, I kept thinking The Great Escape. That kept playing in my head while I was watching.
Really?
For some reason, every time The Great Escape just started playing in my head, because there's similar movies made in a similar time. And also Charles Bronson was in that one too. So that it's
Charles Bronson is in a lot of great movies.
Oh yeah,
a lot of my favorites, like Magnificent Seven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So all right. So we are at that time. Let's score it, Jed, because it was your movie this week. You get the honors of dropping the first score.
Perfect. Well, I absolutely adore this film. It is without doubt my favorite World War II movie, and I do realize that comes with a lot of bias, but I do see a lot of issues with it. Like you said, it's longer than it needs to be. The Germans act pretty weird in the third act. There are some logical inconsistencies, so I probably have to give this one an 8. I feel bad doing it because of how much I love it, but I think 8 would be fair.
I'm gonna give it 7.5 out of 10. I give it a 7 because of generally, again, I feel that second act drags on too long. I want to connect with the Dirty Dozen, but the fact that so many of them are red shirts that I barely know them, that that loses a bit for me. And then the ones who actually have names and personalities, I connect with so few of them. And for me, rightfully so, I connect to the ones that are the least offensive of them. That the guys who have, as we said, the moral questions and this and that takes points off for me. At the same time, my questions about certain events in the third act, why not do this? Why not do that? But at the same time, I love all the setup and payoff. I love the well-choreographed action. I love the acting. The acting is just superb. And that's heavy. But also, as someone who has watched so many World War II movies in my life, this is not one I go back to on a regular basis. It's one that, as I said, I think I've only watched this 3, maybe this was the 4th time I've ever watched it. But I do own it because it's worth owning. It's something that belongs on your shelf because it is a classic. And I know they do. I know there was a semi sequel with Telly Savalas in it, but I mean, that I never saw that, and I've always wondered. Wait a minute, I guess they recast him as somebody else, because Maggot's dead, and Maggot would never have done that. There is a sequel to it, or
that.
It's something.
Okay,
it's something.
with never seeing that.
Yeah. Let's pretend it doesn't exist. But overall, again, it's a great movie. Again, I have to stretch to find my criticisms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one of those things where I'm stretching, but I'm trying to be objective from my perspective. Either way, so I give it 7.5 out of 10. Jed gives it an 8. And there you got it, guys. That's another one in the books. We hope you enjoyed it. No movie yet for next week. It's my choice. I have not picked one yet, but we will remind you that as we get closer to Halloween, we are going to tell you now that we are doing The Crow this year for when we get to Halloween, for Halloween 2023. So get ready for that one. Get ready for that one ahead of time. So great. All right, Jed, thank you for being here as always. And just reminding me that there's a reason that you're my reason to go on living. It's okay. I had to get one more in there. Honestly, I had no idea where I was going with that one until it was the last second. Anyway, all right, guys, great. Jed, thanks for being here. Again, if you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button, whether you're watching live or on the replay. We thank you. We hope you have a good rest of your day or evening, wherever you may be. Take it easy, and we'll see you next time.
Chevron 1, coded.
For my ally is the Force, and the powerful ally it is. Life creates it, makes it grow.
You failed your hunt. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Cry hammer, and let's set the tongues of war.
Chevron 2 is coded.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, to hear the lamentation of your women.
It's all in the reflexes.
Well, also said you're heavy into martial arts, Tai Chi and all that killer stuff. I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
Chevron 3 encoded.
And somebody ought to belt you in the mouth. But I won't. I won't. The hell I will.
Chevron 4 encoded.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
Chevron 5 encoded.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Chevron 6 encoded.
Not for while you can, monkey boy.
Great Scott. Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
You shall not pass!
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with Al.
What about side by side with a friend?
A day may come when the courage of men fails, when we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Chevron 7 is locked.